it's recorded. Okay, fire away.
Okay. So essentially I'm just pulling up a sales order that's under the cash terms flow, I guess.
Okay.
And really in this flow, the original sales order will always be invoiced to the customer, and that's part of the cash terms flow. Essentially, the customer gets invoiced the original quoted order at pickup.
Okay.
And the idea behind that was, obviously they're on credit card terms, so if their credit card was canceled, we would know about that when we were to run the credit card, and we would have essentially the shipment in transit, so we'd be able to contact the carrier and let them know that since we are the billing party for the shipment, that we don't want the freight delivered, so that they could, we could essentially hold their shipment hostage until they paid for the shipment.
Okay.
But in the same case, you can run through the iTerms flow. There are many orders where the original sales order has been invoiced.
Okay.
So that they would essentially run through that same flow, and I can run you through an example of an iTerms shipment where the original sales order has been invoiced. In both cases, you're creating a sub, essentially to charge the customer the additional amount. And in this case, it's a liftgate fee. And just like instead of scheduling the invoice button under the iTerms flow, there's a button that essentially says schedule invoice. We're saving the order under the order status shipment finalized, and as soon as we save it, the customer is scheduled to be invoiced. So essentially the same, just in a different location, but the same functions being performed. We're setting the invoice to be scheduled to the customer. In this flow, the email notification that goes to the agent
Okay.
and customer is manual, so I have to come in here and enter, the reason for the fee and essentially set up the customer to be emailed.
Okay.
And on the iTerms flow, obviously that's all automated.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is another reason why we would like it to go through that flow, which is
Yeah.
essentially less steps, but you just save the order under shipment finalized.
Perfect.
It's very similar.
Yep.
To a part of the flow under the iTerms. Obviously, some of the orders under the iTerms flow we're holding. We're always looking to hold the customer's invoice until we receive the carrier's invoice. That doesn't always happen in every case. That's why we have a very similar flow, because when that doesn't happen, you essentially are creating a suborder to the customer. You're running through this almost the same flow that we just ran through.
Okay.
Do you want me to run through an iTerms?
Yeah, that would be lovely if you could do that. Yeah.
Let me try and find one here. So similarly, we have the original sales order has already been invoiced to the customer. So we need to create a server to invoice the customer an additional amount. So you're going to click on the suborder. Like I mentioned before, you have your schedule invoice button,
Yep.
which essentially automatically it'll change the invoice status to scheduled, um, and it would invoice the customer with it after the 72-hour holding period. So that there's a lot of things obviously on the back end that would change as far as the invoicing. I believe in this case, under the iTerms process, we were holding the invoice to the customer for the 72 hours. Under the cash terms, or credit card terms, they invoice the customer, I believe, the next day.
Okay.
And they're running, obviously, so I believe that they're running their cards. I don't know a whole lot about that process. I don't know how automated it is.
Okay.
That might be, as far as from my standpoint, from what I see, I mean, the change looks very simple, but obviously, as far as invoicing the customer, if it's a whole nother process on the back end, that might be something that we need to look into.
Okay.
But from this perspective, it just looks like, a couple of changes need to be made. But other than that, I don't really see a problem with changing it over.
Perfect. Yeah. So let's see if we can merge the two, and see if we can add some efficiencies by doing that. Obviously, that email you were showing me would be a lot more efficient if you can just automatically create that rather than manually create it. Okay, good. And then that self-disputing, the internal disputing. Can you just give me a quick understanding of that? Because it was funny this morning. I was talking to Amit about that, and he was telling me he built that out, thinking that no one was probably using it, but it sounds like you are using it, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's just kind of similar to this scenario where, almost all the steps are the same. It does, once you run through the steps, I mean, it's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just was always, we developed iTerms after obviously everything was just run through.
Yeah, exactly.
The cash terms process. So we just created iTerms, but we just kind of left the cash terms for the credit card customers just because of the liability. Obviously, we were looking, taking on. So, but let me pull one of those up and I'll just show you.
Perfect.
So instead of the dispute tab, there's the dispute link, I guess you would call it. But just like the dispute tab under the iTerms process, you're selecting which vendor bill you want to mark disputed.
Okay.
So if there's multiple, obviously they're displayed here, and you're selecting between, whichever one is attached to the sales order. In this case, we only have the one. So you would select that, and then it opens up the ability to, enter your dispute amount, enter your reason, and I guess the date's already selected. As soon as you save it, it's performing the same function. It's just changing the vendor bill status from requote, or in the iTerms case, manual audit. Changes it from the vendor bill from that status to dispute, and obviously creates the similar, dispute column, and everything that it would through the other function.
Okay.
I guess it enters the amount up here. It doesn't create the dispute column like it did through the iTerms process, but it's changing the bill status. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. So we'll get that looked at overnight, and probably have some more questions for you. So we'll table those for tomorrow's meeting, and then I think tomorrow we can start kind of working through The sales order, I think, is looking in pretty good shape now.
Mhm.
Of course, we're working on, of course, adding this dispute functionality currently at the moment, so the guys have started working on that. But I think they just wanted to confirm this I terms and T terms just to kind of make sure they've got everything in place for that. So, okay, lovely. Well, thank you very much for your time there. And we'll meet up again tomorrow, and we'll look at some other items tomorrow, Nathan. So you have a great
Okay.
evening.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
too. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Yep. Bye. You
Bye.
too.